historic Door County Fish Boil. I am the boil master here at the old post office. I do every single fish boil here at the restaurant, which comes down to roughly 400 of these every season. And I was also born and raised right here in beautiful Door County. So I would tell you guys a little bit about our famous fish boils that we do up here, starting with the fish we use. That's what I have right over here. I do walk around the whole circle to show you what they look like before I put them in the kettle. So if you want to get a picture of them, have your phone out and ready, because I gotta kind of keep moving. Everything's done on my little timer here. So fish that we use for our fish boils here in Door County, they're all fresh and they're all locally caught Lake Michigan whitefish. They're caught from both sides of the peninsula, Lake Michigan side and out on the bay side, depending on the time of year. And we do buy all the fish from local commercial fishermen right here in Door County. We get fresh fish delivered just about every other day. They caught all your fish yesterday morning. They go lift their nets for them usually every other morning, so that means you almost always get them cooked 1 or 2 days after they're caught here at the restaurant. If you've never been to a fish boil before, these are whitefish steaks. They are not whitefish fillets. They're basically just chunks of whitefish. I take the whole fish and I cut them all up like that into steaks. That's what I was just doing in the kitchen a minute ago. That does mean that all of the bones are still in the fish, which does kind of throw a lot of people off. However, the servers quickly remove the bones for you here at the restaurant right before they serve it to you. So believe me, it does make for a much, much nicer experience not having to deal with all those little fish bones. And also too, this is only half of the fish for you guys. There's exactly 68 people at this fish boil. Well, you don't want to put them all in the kettle at once for this many people. So what I do, I come on, I cook the other half of the fish as soon as you guys start to head inside. That way while they're serving that one, we have a fresh one out back here cooking. So it kind of just assures by the time the servers get around all your tables that you're all getting some fresh, hot cooked fish. So it's really the best way to do it. And everybody gets 2 of these. And this is part of 900 pounds they caught yesterday morning.
Wow.
Oh yes.
I'm having chicken. I wonder if he's gonna. I'm gonna say, can I see my chicken?
You should.
Oh yes. And they're bringing us all the. Ooh. Let me tell you something about your chicken tenders. These are all hauled out yesterday, and they're bringing us all these big fatty ones too right now. So good for you guys. Like these are some real nice chunky ones.
Very good.
Looking good. How do they look, kids? Oh yeah. You get 2 of them, lady. Everyone gets 2. Nice. Yes. These are some really nice ones too right now.
It's like fish.
Single one.
I'm having chicken. One is my chicken.
Smaller ones, I get like
Your boiled chicken.
wow. Really fat. They spawn in the fall. Okay. Fall they catch thousands and thousands. And then right around November 1st, the Enoch closes. Some spawn and reproduce.
Gosh.
Ricky himself.
At home, I personally feel
Everything fast. All right, these will go in the kettle for about 7 to 7.5 minutes, which should be right about now. And it is exactly 7:11, close enough. All right, now if you've never been to a fish boil before, well, obviously it is quite a dining experience to say the least. Door County is definitely home to the fish boils. We've been doing traditional fish boils here at the old post office restaurant since 1978 now, so 47 years they've been doing fish boils right out back here at this restaurant. I've been doing them here for the last 10 years now, and we do the fish boils in every single type of weather condition, no matter what. So yes, even if it's absolutely pouring down rain out back here, guess what? We still do the fish boils, but that's always the most commonly asked question I get. And yes, believe me, this can be done in the rain. Now, before you guys all get here, I fill the kettle up with about 25 gallons of water, 3 cups of salt go into the water. Salt is the only seasoning you put into a fish boil. That's pretty much all the Norwegian settlers had back in the old days. However, it does season everything quite well. The fish, the potatoes, and the onions. You get your fire burning. It takes about 20 minutes or so to get the water to really start to boil. Once the water is boiling, you start your timer. At 30 minutes, each fish boil takes a half an hour. Potatoes, they go in the kettle first for the whole half an hour. Onions will go in the kettle second, usually about 3 to 7 minutes after the potatoes go in, depending on the size. and then the fish go in the kettle for the last 7 to 7.5 minutes or so. That's all it really takes to cook the whitefish. And on an average season, I cut up and boil about 35,000 pounds of whitefish out of this kettle. So yes, that's what we go through just at this restaurant alone. However, we are always able to get fresh whitefish right out of our own local waters up here in Door County. So they're definitely an important natural resource to the area. I'm going to hit this thing with a little kerosene to get it ripping hot again, so beware. Oh, yeah. Okay, that was good. Get them boiling again. You don't worry, you see another big one of those right at the end of it. Now the fish boil itself, this is an old Scandinavian tradition. It was started off by Swedish and Norwegian immigrants back in the 1800s up here in Door County. Northern Door County, where you guys are all at, is very rich in Scandinavian heritage. You do kind of see it all over up here. Well, the fish boils are a part of our old Scandinavian heritage as well. Most of the Swedes and the Norwegians who settled here back in the 1800s, they homesteaded up here in Door County. Basically got free land by the government just to move up to these remote areas so they could start establishing growth to the upper parts of the Great Lakes. Some of them came up here to fish. Most of them came up here to work in the logging industry. Those would have been your two main jobs back in the 1800s up here in Door County. There was plenty of fish out in the waters, and the peninsula itself was heavily forested. Now, I'm pretty sure that the fish boil was never really meant to become a tourist attraction like it is today, as this kind of thing would have just been done in logging camps and the little tiny fishing villages back in the 1800s up here. So that's pretty much how it all started off. Wasn't until around the turn of the century people started to appreciate all this natural beauty Door County had to offer. They quit logging all the forests up here. They started to preserve areas for state parks, including Peninsula, which is straight across the harbor, and they started to build and open the first hotels and resorts for tourists, including the Edgewater Resort, opened up in the year 1900. It was one of the first hotels to open up here in the village of Ephraim. So right around that time, Door County started getting its very first tourists. Unlike today, where we get over 2 million visitors up here every summer, if you did come to Door County back in the early 1900s, you would have came up here by steamship. They didn't have the roads or the highways built this far north on the peninsula until the late 1920s, so they started bringing tourists up here from Chicago and Milwaukee during the summertime by steamship. And if you were coming all the way up here from Chicago or Milwaukee on a steamship back in those early years, well, you probably weren't coming up for long weekends or day trips like people do nowadays. First of all, the tourist ship, it only came into Ephraim once a week back in those early years. Most of the people who did come up on it, they were quite well off, and they would stay up here in Door County for a few weeks to a few months during the summertime. And back in those days, when you stayed at a hotel or resort for so long up here, well, they cooked all your meals for you while you stayed up here, and everybody pretty much ate the same thing. Well, some of those old hotels and resorts started to do fish boils for their guests, and that's how this tradition was born here in Door County. We basically have been doing fish boils the traditional way, just like this for the tourists, ever since. So you can see it does go back well over a century. It's definitely a Door County original tradition, and you can date this all the way back to the very first European settlers we had up here in Door County. So it is a pretty neat thing. It's stuck around so long, and we still do it the traditional ways like this, using firewood, and very soon a can of kerosene, which I have right over here. Now, the kerosene thing you do at the end of the fish boil, this is probably something that was discovered by accident, if I had to take a guess. But the last thing that you do at a fish boil, and is before you go inside to eat it, is boil the whole kettle over. Once all this stuff starts cooking in here, you start to get this layer of foam and scum, and there's even ash from the fire that simmers to the surface of the kettle. So somebody along the way came up with the boil over, where you throw a can of kerosene into the fire. Not only does it make a huge fireball, it'll make a great picture as well, so have your cameras ready for it. More importantly, what it does, it makes the whole thing boil over, and yes, all this foam and gunk from the top will go right along with it. It does actually work. Quite genius. You'll see for yourselves in a moment. After we boil the kettle over, you guys go right ahead, walk back in between the two buildings, Go right to your assigned tables. The servers come around and bring everybody a plate with a couple of whitefish steaks. You get boiled baby red potatoes. You also get a boiled onion. You put melted butter all over the top of that. You get homemade breads, homemade coleslaw, and for dessert, a slice of Door County cherry pie. So yes, it is quite delicious to enjoy. Also, too, if you're new to Door County, grab one of my flyers I have over on my rack. I was born and raised up here in Door County, so I did print off all the key places you should try to visit while you're up here. So if you're new to the peninsula, feel free to grab one of those if you'd like as well. And I also do have a tip kettle. Tips are